Here we are. I've lost track of which number interview this is. We have the lovely Graham Easterlaw with us today, aka Dyad, aka Factory Reset, or at least one half of. Graham, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your multifaceted practice?
Yeah, so I guess I would kind of class myself as a bit of a creative adventurer. I kind of have several kind of projects, I guess. We have a theatre company called Bordello, which also has a collective of queer artists who all make work, mostly kind of focusing on sort of multidisciplinary performance work, but also kind of like space making and placemaking, sort of weaving together kind of visual art, sound art, poetry, and sort of ritualistic theatre. I've got Factory Reset, like you say, which is a bit of a music project. And I am a poet in my own right. So I make my own poetry and write my own stuff and perform mostly with kind of soundtrack. So I kind of perform with a kind of a soundscape. And I'm also an artist and sort of experimenting with visual art stuff under the pseudonym Dyad. So yeah, all kind of coming through a queer lens. I identify as queer, and so that's kind of the lens that my work and others is made on.
So, how have you managed then over these last couple of months to keep spinning these plates, or have you? Have you managed to keep everything ticking over?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been an incredibly busy time. We had so much laid up this year. We honestly had a huge year ahead of us. We were talking about Arts Council application for a show with ARC in Stockton, which is still going to probably happen, we hope, fingers crossed, which is called And Etc., which is all about LGBTQI plus semiotics and symbolism and design and colour. And we were going to have like a whole year long project where we designed a new show. We were going to have a new show in Darlington called Time Machine Number One. We were set up to be with Curious Festival, and then all of that just stopped. And so we were all just kind of like, oh, okay, so 2020 isn't going to be this full massive year. It's going to be this space. Let's see what happens. And for a couple of weeks, we kind of just were like, oh, this is strange. But slowly, we kind of started to see the opportunities in the kind of the spaces. And we got a commission with Abode, with the auxiliary, and we started to sort of connect together some musicians and some visual artists digitally, and we were all kind of creating work in our own spaces, and then we were sort of sharing it on a Google Drive and kind of having regular video meetings, and that kind of resulted in some really interesting pieces and kind of collaboration across kind of like digital platforms, which we hadn't done before. So using a platform called Blender, way out of my comfort zone, like way out of my comfort zone. I'm a real kind of like analog person most of the time. And so Blender was just like, okay, that's just crazy. But people were getting into it, and I think that's led to some projections. I think some of the stuff that was recently in Pineapple Black was made during that commission. Some of the projections that Vision 25C and Lucy Bain did in their piece. And so that was kind of something that kind of got us into this kind of rhythm of going, oh, we can share work, we can do stuff. And we have a live platform for queer artists called We the Queers. And we were kind of like, we were due to have a show, like a live show on I think it was the 13th of March or the 14th of March. And we were like, do we, don't we, do we, don't we? And some of our regular visitors, some of our regular fans, I guess, are differently abled and have COPD. And we were like, no, we can't run the show because they'll come anyway, you know. And then literally 2 days later, national lockdown. So we were really pleased that we said, no, we're not gonna go with that show. But then we were kind of like, I wonder if there's any kind of platforms we could use. And so through lockdown, we actually ran something called At Home with We the Queers. We've done 6 shows. We've had, I guess it's kind of like a magazine show where you kind of have myself hosting it. And then you've kind of got these different drag artists, queer performers, poets, musicians. We had a regular slot called Cooking with Fat with a Fat Butcher. Made some beautiful things. If you've not seen Cooking with Fat, check it out on Facebook on We the Queers at We the Queers NE. But if you just Google We the Queers, and so we did like 6 Saturday night shows into people's homes, from our home into their home, and the feedback was fantastic. We had so many people saying, "Thank you, this is exactly what I needed. This is the Saturday night I'm missing." And it wasn't kind of, in your face. It was really gentle, really kind of creative. And slowly we kind of ended up getting artists from Cape Town. We had a storyteller zoom in from Cape Town. We had a poet called Lucky from California. We had people in London, Manchester, Bristol. It was quite incredible. And also then, you have this space as a person to be really focusing in on, what work do I want to make as an artist? I've not got these commissions, but maybe I can kind of explore some stuff. And I certainly kind of, as Dyad kind of like started to really explore text and listening to some of the language that was kind of being used, and that shift in language and the way that words were being used really as a kind of a propaganda tool, but also as a kind of a lever to make us all go certain directions, or or react from certain things. And so I'm still kind of in that kind of that mode at the moment. I'm back in the auxiliary, back in my studio, and really making work that's kind of like taking that language and kind of finding out, what is that language and how is it shifting and how does it prompt us. And so that led to a piece that obviously I was at Pineapple Black called three-word slogan, because they're the kind of propaganda slogans, aren't they? Eat more fruit.
I mean, the show you did at Pineapple Black was one of my favorites that we've had in the window, and I thought it was really important, as well as kind of, as consumerism kicked back in, we had that kind of display right out there. And I know your politics, as you've mentioned, are very important to your work. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How the current climate is driving, your subject matter.
Yeah, I think we're it's a dangerous place that we're inhabiting at the moment, because chaos is a very natural thing. Chaos is something that happens in the world all the time. We have storms, we have floods, we have wind, we have things that happen to us that are chaotic. Chaos is a really natural thing that happens, but it's a really difficult thing for people to inhabit. And so we're constantly looking for ways out of that chaos, and that the people that sometimes offer us a little way out aren't always the people that we might want to follow, and people will exploit our kind of vulnerability in that chaos. And I think that's really where we're at. We've got a very difficult kind of situation where we've got some people with some very, very fixed views of the way the world is going to be and how the world is, who are in positions of authority and power on our behalf. We are a democracy. And I think that the worry and the fear for me is that in that chaos, we lose the ability to be measured and balance and have dialogue and see more than just the choice of yes or no, or in or out, or independent or united, or I'm going to wear a mask, I'm not going to wear a mask, whatever it is. If we binaryize everything, if it's just a single kind of switch, then we lose a lot of kind of the color of the world. And for people like me, and for people who are slightly different and don't necessarily fit on that side or that side, that spectrum, we can get really lost. And I think for me, that's the most powerful thing that art is able to do, is to kind of present an image, a color, a shape, a sound, words, a presentation of a chewed up, regurgitated world, which allows us to see the color and the shape and the shades and the gray and the beige, or the rainbow. And I think that's what's really driving me at the moment, is trying to sort of pick through some of that kind of like binary thing and trying to sort of go, no, we just need to pull some other stuff in. What interestingly about 3-word slogan was I purposefully chose only a very limited palette. So it is black and white, and that was kind of how that work began. And then there's red and then yellow. And the yellow is no word. The yellow is literally just sprayed kind of like bullet hole kind of like spray points of this yellow color. And for me, that was kind of like almost like you're kind of smacking through the black and the white and the red to let something kind of come out that's a different kind of shade that doesn't have word. But it's, yeah, we're in a very dangerous place, I think. And as we come out, I mean, front page of the newspaper today, uproar because we're going to raise taxes on corporations. Well, how else do you think they were going to pay for it all? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've struggled with more than lockdown itself is the way, as you described, where everyone's kind of polarized all of a sudden. And, you know, I keep saying, like, I miss the days when there was a gray area, you know, kind of, it is kind of one extreme or the other. And I'm not kind of quite sure I'm either way with that. So just coming on to round things off, moving forward, as lockdown starts to ease, what is next for these kind of projects that you're working on?
Well, I think we'll continue to kind of make our platforms and present things. I mean, the one thing that this situation gives us is more stimulus. It gives us more inspiration. I think the one thing for me, I guess, moving forward is really trusting that the seam that I've kind of like tapped into for myself artistically is kind of okay. And I'm going to follow that and see where I go with that and kind of really follow that journey. And I don't see it as kind of like, you know, where we were, like, I'm going to go back. I'm going backwards back to where we were. It's going to go back to normal. Everyone's going to go back to normal. When do we get back to normal? It's never, ever going to go back to normal. We cannot relive anything that's happened. So the only way is kind of forward. And I think the gift that I have as a person to be able to take the world, kind of play around with the world for myself, you know, a lot. I do it and I present it to people sometimes I just keep it in my studio, but it you know, I do it for me. I do it because I need it to navigate kind of how I want to kind of try and move around the world. And I think the drive is going to have to be, and for me to stay true and to be really honest and to take risks, you know. But before lockdown, when we had the election and things changed, you know, we were making a lot of work that was saying things about kind of like, we're going to have a fight on our hands here. You're going to have to push back, because if we don't push back, we're just going to kind of get pushed over. And, you know, I'm not, you know, I think the Black Lives Matter protests in America and the kind of explosion of what people were saying was violence and these violent protests. Well, what happens when you've been squashed and squashed and squashed and squashed, and, you know, you've tried the peaceful process, you've tried that kind of thing. You know, people were kneeling. Do you remember when people used to kneel and they did the kneeling protest? And that didn't change anything. People didn't. And then we had someone die. We had more than one person die. Now, I'm not saying England is that same place, but we are seeing potentially a future version of where we are if we're not careful. And I think I am proud to be from the United Kingdom. I'm proud to be born where I'm born, but I want to stay proud of that. And I want to stay proud of the fact that we're a liberal and equal, you know, progressive country that is always looking to have conversation and debate to move us forward. And so hopefully I'll be making work that prompts conversation, debate. And even if someone just looks at my work and goes, "Blood rubbish," fine by me. At least it prompted a reaction.
Well, I'm really excited to see what you get up to next. I'm always fascinated by your projects. I think you're a really interesting artist and a very eloquent speaker, as you have proved once again. Thank you very much for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll catch you soon in real life.
See you later.
See you later.